Okay, so this is a re-record. I went over 14 minutes the last time, so let's try this again. I waited a while to go over the Reverend Wright thing just to gauge people's reactions. Okay. The Reverend Wright sermon, which I did watch in entirety due to the fact that I knew about this 3 months ago. So I did see the Reverend Wright's sermons, and so for anybody to say that they're not racist is kind of hypocritical and illogical. When you basically demonize one race, that incites hate towards that race, which incites racism. That's obviously what he did. Okay, I'm sorry, you're going to hate the person who you think experimented on you. You're going to hate the person who you think gave you AIDS. So obviously he was inciting hate. So that is racist. Okay? Then he doesn't say God damned America, because if he said God damned America, that would have been a more Christian faith kind of basing. But the fact is, he said God damned America. That is a personal slight from himself towards America. So, I mean, right there you have anti-unity. I mean, excuse me. You have anti-unity. You have anti-American, anti-government. Anti-government is, before he said God damn America, he gave a huge history lesson that led to government and basically said that government fails. So, like I said, I did watch the sermon in its entirety. Okay? So, then 20 years of pastoring, 20 years of, I'd imagine, sermons around the same lines. I mean, come on. Or at least around the same lines. And then 20 years later, he has presidential hopeful Barack Obama go on national television and lie to the American people and say that he never heard any of those statements of any type. I mean, he was asked very clear questions. So to try to weasel around them is kind of absurd. So basically, he lied on national television, then he makes this huge speech, which, I mean, potato. It was a spin. It was a spin speech, and he was being his classic spin doctor self. Like I said, he's a master politician. This guy is a politician, okay? He is just like every other politician. You know, he does the exact same thing as they do. Either way, I don't see how that represents change. He looked at it as a very political standpoint when he did that speech. He said, okay, if I disown Reverend Wright, like I'm being told to, I will still keep some of the white support, some of the white American demographic support. But if I disown Reverend Wright, then I will get the black American vote, which is a sizable chunk, taken away. Because look what happened to Bob Johnson. He was massacred. So he had to weigh the evils and basically not take blame, not disown, and blame somebody else. Which, like I said, that was a perfect spin. He basically said the country is still racist, and I don't believe that. You know, I've lived in at least 7 different states at this time when I was 16. I don't believe that. Generally, you know, all the people I've ever ran into, very open-minded, and I've traveled in a bunch of different circles. I've even lived in the South. So just that statement alone kind of disturbs me, because as far as I knew, you know, we as a people were doing very good. So, like I said, I did not like the speech. I totally disagreed with it. It was a spin doctor move, and it's obviously a spin doctor move when he's reading from a fucking teleprompter and has 8 fucking American flags behind him, yet he can't put one American flag on his, on his shirt. He can't salute the American flag, but all of a sudden the American flag's his fucking friend. He's got 8 of those motherfuckers behind him. When did the whole drumbeat change there? Like I said, this is a spin move. I mean, I hate to be cynical, but it was a spin move. But he ended up having to have these ultra-liberal newspapers come in and save the day. You have all the ultra-liberal newspapers crowning it as this theatrical piece, and it was just so fantastic, and, you know, it was really a kind of conversation we need to have. We've had this conversation several times in the past. We've had riots, we've had, you know, court cases, we've had, you know, instead of that, you have things where people come together all the time. You know, we always have, as a people, come together. So, just the entire argument is off base. I mean, for them to say that this was a great speech was absurd. You know, we have been through this dialogue several times. So, he lost me on that one. He lost me on the fact that he used his grandmother. He lost me on that one. I'm sorry, I have super respect for my grandmother, and I know millions of other people who fucking have been raised the exact same way I have respect for their grandparents, okay? One, we don't know if she actually said that. Nobody does. Two, just the simple fact that he used her like this was just trite. He used her like this after Hillary Clinton's campaign was massacred every time, you know, she said anything negative about Obama and deemed it as racist. I mean, every time any one of her surrogates, any of her campaign did anything negative, it's dubbed racist. And then, and this is all like dubbed racist in like, you know, disguising manner, like the Jardine Ferraro. I mean, it wasn't like outright racism. It wasn't fucking inciting hate. It wasn't doing any of that. It was just speaking of natural demographics. Then turn right around. Obama's actually got a serious case of actual racism. The Clintons don't. Obama's got actual racism. Hate is involved. Hate is involved in Obama's pastor, in his sermon that he attended for 20 years. How can he change the country if he couldn't change one man? This is the question I want everybody to be asking themselves. How can he change an entire country when he couldn't even change his own pastor, who also represents a huge generational demographic? How is he capable of doing this? He couldn't even change one pastor. In fact, you know, we're going to be led to believe that instead of changing one pastor, that, you know, he's just gotten worse in years. He couldn't change one man. One man's opinion. Which, you know, was disrespectful. I mean, just, it was outright racist. I mean, I'm sorry. Look at it this way. Flip the script and make it a white preacher to a white candidate saying outright, you know, hate inciting preachings specifically towards the black community. They would have been massacred. They would have been massacred. This wouldn't even be a conversation I would have to have right now. They would have been massacred. Let's start having non-hypocritical conversations here. Factual debate. Hello.